men. And I use the term in a manly way again today. This is the Springer off the Ratty Rod. Obviously, it's off the bike and taken apart. I've really been looking forward to working on this. When I saw the bike, I could see the Springer was going to have some challenges. Well, it looks like hell. And I really don't know that there's a lot I could do about that. I mean, I'll clean it up and I'm going to do some things to it, but getting it re-chromed is out of this owner's ballpark as far as cost is concerned. I don't get a lot of things chromed. As a matter of fact, I pretty much never get anything chromed. But I bet you, in dealing with my chrome guy, that if I took this to him to get it chromed, I bet you he'd want over $1,000 to get that chrome. And you know, new Springers are $1,000 or more, so that's putting you in the new Springer ballpark. But anyway, we're going to fix this thing up. We're going to take care of some issues. We're going to talk about the triple trees today primarily as one thing that was screwed up. A couple of the other things that were screwed up are the rockers. The front axle was too short, and it pinched the rockers together so they were rubbing on the tubes. There's little bearings in the rockers that were all shot, of course, but we'll take a look at that a little bit closer later on. Today I'm going to be focusing my efforts on the triple trees. We'll go over to the bench and I'll show you what the problems are. These are the triple trees, and they've been taken apart, cleaned up a little bit, but this is stacked up in the order in which they were on the bike. Here's a couple of the issues. You take the big nut off the top, and the top clamp comes off. No surprises there. And I think I showed in one of the earlier videos when I was taking it off the bike, the top bearing race would not come off. It'd get to about here and it was stuck. It wouldn't go any farther. And I did some beating on it and I could not get it to come off. What I ended up doing was cutting a slot with the Dremel tool in the bearing and pounding a chisel in there so I could spread it apart, and then I was able to force it over the see, it's still hard to get off even with the slot cut in it. I was able to force it over the threaded part of the stem, and it really seemed like, how in the hell could they have even put it together? But they did. So anyway, let's knock this off again, maybe. And for reasons I'll go into in a minute, I'll tell you why I'm not worried about screwing anything up right now. If I can even get it off there. Son of a bitch. Let's spread the bearing race apart a little bit, if I can. Suck. Okay, there. And it was with that degree, actually a greater degree of difficulty, that I finally got the bearing race off the motorcycle. Next, of course, the thing has got to drop out the bottom. The lower clamp and the stem have got to drop out the bottom, so I thought. Well, but now the bearing cup is stuck on here, and I'm wondering how did they even put this thing together. What I eventually discovered was that there was a set screw on the stem on the bottom, and the stem unscrewed, which I did while it was in the bike, and this diameter is smaller than this diameter. So the race comes off, the cup comes off, the other cup comes off, and the race with the slot cut in it, of course, would have come off too. I'm kind of the opinion that this front end was meant for a big twin. It's got the larger diameter stem, which is either for the later model Sportsters. This is a 70, this bike. This would have been on, let's see, 78, 79, I think is when they went to the wider stem. But anyway, the only way to get the front end apart without destroying anything was to unscrew the triple clamp off the bottom. And, you know, that'd work, but holy moly, it's really not the way you want to put it together. You know, you want the stem firmly attached. You want to be able to shove this in from the bottom and, you know, do your bearings and put the clamp on and everything else. So, one other issue I noticed was this. The stem should be kind of a snug fit in the top clamp. And you can see it is not by any stretch of the imagination a tight fit in there. So no matter how tight you tighten these pinch bolts, I don't think this slot is wide enough to allow it to squeeze together onto there. And when you're going down the road, this thing is going to be going like this all the time. No matter how tight you tighten the big nut up here, no matter how tight you tighten the big nut, this thing is going to be rattling around on you to some degree. So not a very precise front end. What we're going to do with this is this. I've got some other bearing cups, and I've got obviously a race to replace the one, where did it go? The one that I cut in two, wherever it is, it's laying around here somewhere. And I'm going to take this stem out to the lathe, and I'm going to turn this diameter down to match this. Not this, but this, because this is a good fit on the bearing race down here. And I'm going to end up cutting off about, 3/4 of an inch of this, and I'm going to drill down through the center of it and tap it, and this thing is going to be held with the bolt that goes in from the top, so I can take the bolt off and slide everything apart. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to address this clearance issue. This stem is going to be even smaller when I cut this diameter down and get it to match this. So this is going to be even looser in here. And what we're going to do is, and greatly exaggerated, here is the graphical representation of the diameter of this hole, okay? Here is the graphical representation of the stem. I'm going to make a top hat bushing. That's going to fit between the stem and the top triple clamp, and then of course the bolt that tightens everything together is going to go down through the middle of all this, and that's going to be the new top clamping arrangement. So the next time a guy works on this thing, he'll undo the nut, he'll undo the bolt from the top of the triple clamp, get the top half bushing out, pull the top triple clamp off, and everything will come apart from the top like it normally would. I'm going to weld the threads. The threads on the stem are all jacked up. And there's enough of them left that'll probably hold. But what I'm going to do is put this in there, maybe put a pipe wrench on it, get it as tight as I can, and I'm going to weld this in here. That's how I'm going to put these two things together. Just FYI, I was a little bored last night, and this was loaded with hammer marks. I don't know whether somebody was hammering it. Yeah, they must have been hammering it in. But hammer marks. So I put it on the milling machine and I milled it off. I milled this off. There were some hammer marks on the top. I milled it off, milled the front off. And appearance-wise for this Springer, I'm going to get the triple clamps, the springs, and the rockers powder-coated black. And I'm going to lightly scuff sand the tubes to give them kind of a satiny appearance. I think that's going to look good. I don't want to powder coat the tubes because the tubes have to slide in through this hole. You know, the part of the tube that goes in between here has to slide into the hole, and of course when you pound it up in there, it's going to peel all the powder coat off. So you'd have nice powder coat over here, then you have scratched up messy powder coating over here. I don't think it'll look good. We're going to take this out to the dirty shop. We're going to make this diameter match this diameter so that the bearing races will fit over the top the same nice way they fit over the bottom. And then we're going to drill the middle of this and tap it for a bolt. Alright, I'm back in front of the air conditioner in the main shop. Let's see how my labors turned out. So I turned down the outside diameter of the center post to match this diameter right here. The center post is going to get screwed into the bottom clamp. After it's screwed in and tightened, it's going to get welded. When I put it together, bottom bearing race, bottom bearing cup will be pressed into the frame. Top bearing cup will be pressed into the frame, and this will come up in from the bottom. Top of bearing race will go over the balls, and it's a nice snug sliding fit over the part I machined. So that's just about perfect. Then the top triple clamp is going to go on, and I think that this was the top of that. It probably doesn't really matter. I've cut the center post off because it used to stick out past the triple clamp to catch this nut, which won't be used anymore. So the triple clamp goes on. Here's the top hat bushing I made. It slips on over here and it goes over the shaft and between the shaft and the triple clamp. I might slit this on both sides so that when I tighten these screws, everything will squeeze together nicely. But anyway, this is a nice sliding, kind of barely snug fit over the shaft and inside the triple clamp. And then on top of that we got a 9/16 fine threaded bolt that I'm going to tighten up to adjust the play and the preload on the ball bearings. So that's how this is going to go together when it's installed on the bike. It should be a much more precise feeling with a lot less slop in it. Installation and removal will be a lot easier, a lot more straightforward, and I've got every confidence this is going to handle a lot better than the one that was on there. I'm not going to say it's going to handle good because it is, of course, a giant long Springer, but it'll be as good as it could be. So that's it for this. I'm going to talk about these rockers next. Somewhat surprisingly, there were roller bearings at these pivot points. I would have expected some bushings maybe, but little tiny roller bearings in there. And they pivoted on these goofy looking T-bolt kind of things. And of course, where the rollers ride, it's all chowdered up. It's like the surface of the moon there. Craters and lumps. If anybody has seen any bolts like this, let me know. I've tried finding some on the internet and I can't find any. I think I'm going to make some new ones. And to just test the practicality of it, these happen to be 5/8 wide and 1 inch long. I happen to have a little piece of scrap that was 5/8 by 1 inch, and I chucked it up in the 4-jaw chuck, and it doesn't look like it's going to be too hard to make these things. I got it centered pretty good in this direction. Not centered so good in this direction. But with a little practice there, I should be able to make them. I've got some 1018 flat stock ordered to make them out of. I found the bearings. The bearings are kind of easy to come by. I found a number on one of them, and I believe the modern number is SCE88. And for those aviating kind of guys, that would be Sierra Charlie Echo 88. I got bearings, those are coming. I need to get a hold of some of these. Like I said, I think I can make them. I'm planning on making them. You know, the threads are dicked up, the bearing surface is dicked up. It'd be a lot easier to buy them than to make them. But I think I'm going to make them if I have to. But anyway, that'll be the next part of the Springer project coming later.